Well, joining us in the studio is the President, Yewawori Youth Council Public Affairs Analyst, Abayomi Oke Asiwaju. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Great to see you.
Yeah, same here.
And via Zoom is former National Association of Nigerian Student Coordinator, Southwest, Comrade Kapo Olawale. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Right. Let me begin with you in the studio. What do you make of this move by the president? We know this is not the first time we are having a student loans board or having something like this. We had that in the 70s or so. But there's been a mixed bag of reaction to the president introducing this back into the system. There are those who are for it, those who are against it. But where do you stand with this?
All right, let me start by saying that for some of us, the Nigeria of our dream is a place where a child of nobody or a son of nobody will eventually become somebody without knowing anybody. It simply means that maybe close to an egalitarian society where you have access to what other people too have access to. For example, education. Education shouldn't be something that would be hard-handed. It's something that we all should have access to, just like that commentary now that we have where the president said, if truly education is a weapon to combat poverty, then it should be accessible to all. So I think this student loan has given Nigerians, as well as Nigerian students, an opportunity to go to school and be on the same pedestal with other opportune youth or students out there who probably their parents can afford to pay their school fees and all that. So it's a good thing that this student loan is coming. Just like I've also said, this is not the first time. I think during Yakubu Gowon's administration, we had something similar. But for me, like you asked, where do I stand? I believe that this is a fantastic initiative, and I believe that it will work.
All right, Kapo, let me come to you on this as well. I wonder, because there are people who understand the education system and the entire value chain who are a little skeptical about the introduction of the tuition and introduction of the student loan, as the case may be. Talk to us generally. What should we know? What are the misconceptions people are having about this?
Well, thank you very much. As a nation, it is expected that when bills are passed, people tend to come against it. But let me also congratulate the student constituency for this great feat, owing to the fact that, despite the fact that we don't have such initiative, the Nigerian youth are still struggling to get their education. And as such, I commend the president's initiative. But then, I had also taken a look at the bill, and I have my own little opinion about some of the lines in the bill. And then one of the major things has to do with when is this kicking off? It is not stated. And we are in a country where sometimes when the bill is passed, 20 years after, nothing is done. So beyond us rejoicing that the bill is passed, when is this bill going to, and when is it going to take effect? I also saw a section of it that says that the head office is going to be in the Federal Capital Territory. And be as it may be, that it could be in other states. I also feel that every state in the country is expected to have a branch of this bank for easy accessibility. And another one I saw has to do with the applicants. And you ensuring that if your family income is less than 500,000 naira, you cannot, if it is more than 500,000, you cannot apply for it. There are so many things that are in that bill that, as a body, I know that myself and the national president will still speak about it, to also look at it and put forward to the National Assembly. I also noticed something in that bill, and that has to do with the composition of the board of the banks. You have members of representative of the staff, academic staff union and all. But we don't have a representative of the students' constituency. How then do these people try to protect our interests? We're in a country where ASU goes on strike for years and don't even care about the students. So if there's a student bill, I feel that it is important that the student representative is in the board. Although I understand the intricacies of how the government of NANS is run, that the max you can spend in office is maybe 2 years. And of course, maybe at the end of each convention year, we now send in a new representative, unlike some other associations where you have, some other unions where you have them for maybe 4 years tenure. So apparently, I just hope that the fear of people will not come to reality, because as Africans, we have huge fear. There are so many bills that have been passed, and in the end of the day, they didn't come to materialize. So it is understandable if quite a number of people have that fear or have one or two issues with the bill. So it is left for the presidency to actualize this dream genuinely and not just beyond passing the bill. Thank you.
Right. Let's come back to you, Abayomi. He has expressed his concerns with the bill, especially the fact that there is no representation of students on the board.
Yeah.
And they are even asking, the National Association of Nigerian Students are asking that ASU be taken out of the board and they be part of that representation, so to speak. I wonder what you make of these demands by NANS.
Okay, initially I also have that same concern that since this is about the students, they should have a representative among the, the board, so to say. It's just like in every school when there is a disciplinary committee set up for students. There was a time we also advocated that if you want to judge or decide the case of a student, let a student representative also be there, so that at least we'll probably express some level of sympathy and empathy at that level. But if you consider, I don't know for ASU, I don't know the number of years their executives spend in office, but I think for NANS, it is 1 year.
You said 2.
Okay, is it 2 years now?
Yes.
Okay, fine. If it is 2 years, I think it's not a bad idea. There is no perfect law anywhere, and this law was decided upon by the 9th Assembly. It's possible that the 10th Assembly will tinker with it and look at some of the shortcomings that, of course, that have been raised now and that will still be raised in the future. But for me, I think we should just start. And he asked a very profound question. He said, when will this commence?
Yes.
I think that because judging from the composition of the board, a Minister of Education must be a member of that board. And as we speak today, the cabinet has not been formed. So we are hopeful that the president will swing into action, set up his cabinet now that the 10th Assembly has been inaugurated. Then thereafter, this will definitely materialize and we can start ASAP.
Okay. Kapo, what do you think about one of the criteria to students having access to this loan is a guarantor? You should have about 2 guarantors who should be not less than level 12, civil servants of level 12, and or a lawyer of not less than 10 years of practice that have been practicing after call to bar, and so on. What do you make of, because the other thing there is that the students who should apply, who are eligible for this loan, should be people whom their parents have an income less than 500,000 per annum and all of that. What do you make of students within that bracket having access to guarantors of that caliber? Do you have a concern in that regard?
Yes, I honestly have a concern in that regard. And yesterday I was still having a chat with some of my colleagues, and I told them that I feel that the level 12 is on the high side, especially if you look at, if we actually want to capture the genuine students that should benefit from this loan, the low-income earners, students that cannot afford to pay their tuition. If you look at the bill, I read the bill and I saw that section. And if you now go down, you see a section that now says that for guarantors that are not that are self-employed, yes, there's a section that I think about 3 lines after that bill that for guarantors that are self-employed, that they should come forward with their certificate of registration of their company, maybe, and a few other documents. And for me, I feel that the 10 years in service of a lawyer is also too on the high side. As a matter of fact, if a student can present his or her admission letter to the institution, and from the way the bill is composed or is written, it is the vice chancellor of the school that does what? That forwards the name of the applicant to the bank. And as such, I feel that they have every necessary thing to do what? To track the student. Because if you are admitted into an institution and it is the vice chancellor of your school that is putting forward your name to the bank, the vice chancellor is like the overseer of this. Is like the vice chancellor should be able to stand in for the student because you have admitted those students. You are responsible for those students, and as such, if due diligence is done, I don't think that for students that were to capture, they will be able to get that level 12 officer. They will be able to get a lawyer. Imagine a student that is coming in from a deep downtown in maybe the far east, that they maybe have just 1, 2, 3 persons that are on the level 7. How many persons is that person going to stand for? As a matter of fact, when the name of this guarantor keeps repeating itself, it calls for concern. So I feel that this is this is one part of the bill that the 10th Assembly should look into and see how they can intertwine it such that the level of the guarantor can be reduced so that it can be accessible to apparently almost any average Nigerian.
All right.
Well,
Now, okay,
I
you want to
differ,
quickly?
yeah, because I think this has actually come up as a debate on some platforms where I belong to, and I told them specifically that for an employee, usually employers ask them to get guarantors, and these are some of the conditions, though some people call it stringent conditions, but eventually you see that these employees would get these people to sign for them. Now, we are in a country where you probably must know someone who knows someone that can, of course, guarantee you. You don't necessarily need to. I just concluded a recruitment for an organization recently, and some of the conditions that we gave them was even level 14. And the person said, one of the employees said, I'm not sure I can get it. I said, you can, try. And guess what? In 2 days, he came back with a scanned copy of all the requirements. And I said, wow, so how did you get it? Because I told somebody. Now, let me tell you one of the things that this student loan will address. You see, it's going to shape the attitude of young people, students. Now, because you know that for you to be guaranteed by somebody, they will ask questions about, one, your integrity, your character, and all that. And in view of that, you will begin to start acting like what we call omoluabi in Yoruba, word. Then you become a serious-minded individual, because you know that you will still need the help of somebody who will probably look up to in the society. So you will not be found acting like a truant or like a hooligans around, because you know that at a point in time you want to need their help, and they will ask, is it that boy? That boy that usually engage in this and that. So it will definitely shape your character and your attitude in the community, in the environment, because you will definitely need somebody that will want to guarantee you the future. That is one. Secondly, like I said earlier on, you must know somebody that know another person that would definitely do this. You belong to a nuclear society, family, church, mosque, and definitely before you knock on 3 doors, somebody will help you. Now,
what's the likelihood that people who are desperate could go forge some of those documents?
And then, of course, the student affairs would do their vetting. The vice chancellor will do their vetting. I'm glad that this thing is going through the school, because we've also seen some interventions of the government in the past that were actually targeted at students that even non-students will definitely benefit from. For example, there was a time that they usually give out bursary, and you see that non-students will get this bursary just because they could cook up some documents and they have access to some persons who know somebody within the. But for this, you have to go through the student affairs office. The VC will append the signature. So definitely, these ones two are the first level guarantors. That okay, they are truly aware that you belong to their university or their school, as the case is. So yes, some people may want to beat the system because it's not out of place, but at least I want to believe that those who are truly called the indigents, that truly need this loan, will try as much as possible to do everything that is required to get the loan.
Well, repayment is another thing, because we recall that in the 70s and 80s, when this board was instituted, one of the reasons why it went under was the fact that some students could not meet up their own part of the deal. And here we have a requirement where after your NYSC, 2 years after your NYSC, you have to pay. That is if you're working 10% of your salary and all of that, your income. And then if you're unemployed or if you're self-employed, it is 10% of the profit you make. But there are concerns with regards to this aspect. There are those who say that what if this person does not have a job? We know the level of unemployment in the country as it stands. And now you're asking them to pay 2 years after their NYSC. What is the guarantee that they will get a job at that time?
To commence
payment. And what if they are not making the necessary profit, rather, to pay back?
I think there is a plan, especially from this president. Now, he got into office less than 20 days, he signed this into law. Now, of course, this has been an act of the parliament before his assumption into office. And you also recall that during his campaign, some of his campaign promises, he mentioned the student loan. In fact, he mentioned an effective credit system, that we don't need to buy a car by paying the whole sum. As a civil servant, you can, of course, seek loan and then get to. These are some of the things that he believes will discourage, corruption. Now, I believe that he must have initiated this idea, of course, through some of his people in the parliament, the Ninth Assembly, before he came on board as a president. I want to assume, I'm not speaking for him because I'm not a spokesperson, but I want to assume that he also has a plan to reduce unemployment in this country. Because if you are giving out loans to students and you are saying they should repay back post-NYSC, 2 years after NYSC, that means that you would work hard as government or as the head of government to ensure that these people secure jobs so that they can repay this loan. And I'm also aware that part of the campaign promises of Mr. President is that through, which sector did he?
Tech.
The tech sector, yes, the tech sector that was going to create millions of jobs. Yeah. So I think we should just watch and see how he unveils his other plans. Of course, in collaboration with the National Assembly that would come up with the laws, and definitely we will begin to see tremendous changes. There will be jobs available for youth because I can't give you a loan, and when I know that you are supposed to pay me back, definitely I will offer you a job. I will create an environment. The jobs may not come necessarily from the public sector because, of course, the private sector drives the system. So I believe that there are policies that will encourage private sector to thrive, that will now lead to employment, massive employment of young people, and then these loans could then be something that they can afford to repay.
All right, Couple, let's hear your opinion in this, because this repayment, I've engaged some students, in fact, even yesterday, and it was part of the concern that they had, talking about the issue of repayment. Somebody said that you're going to, all the prisons are going to be full. Because if you can't pay the fine of about 500,000, if you default, then you have to go to prison.
2 years in prison.
So talk to us, what concern do you have in the area or regarding the payment plan or the repayment plan, as the case may be?
Well, thank you very much. I think one of the important things that we should think about is the sustainability of the scheme. And I expect that the presidency should also be thinking in that direction. It is important that these students, the applicants of these loans, of course, they belong to a scheme. And as such, the government should be concerned about their transition from graduation, year of service, to the workforce. Of course, we'll be putting forward some suggestions, like I said earlier. It is important that, just like what the Lagos State government did some years back, I am a beneficiary, where graduating students are trained for about 13 weeks, and then you have corporate organizations come and conduct an interview for them. I was lucky then I got an internship with the FCMB. Of course, that formed the basics of my transition into the corporate world as well as the workforce. So beyond granting the loan, the sustainability of the scheme is key. And as such, maybe there's a need for a special intervention scheme where after your year of graduation, you are admitted, or organizations come in to conduct interview for these applicants, and they get fixed so that they can be genuinely monitored. Because at the end of the day, if I graduate and I don't have a job, like my colleague have shown concern, how then do I tend to pay? Before you know it, this scheme will crumble. The benefit and purpose of the loan, of the scheme, will crumble if we don't have people pay back their loan. And I know that, of course, the federal government, the leadership of the current government is a very intelligent one. They have tried it in Lagos, because I know you agree with me that is the architect and brain box of so many things that has been happening in Lagos. I know that Lagos is putting in so much in that direction. I know that the federal government can also replicate it. I know that the resources to do it is there. So it is important that they are monitored, and as well, they are transited into the workforce. I think there's something my colleague mentioned the other time that I really want to mention on the issue of the guarantor. Of course, I agree with you 100% that guarantor is essential. But my concern is that if you look at the loan, I'm not sure that the max for tertiary institution in Nigeria can be over £1 million. And one thing that is not also stated in that bill is that, okay, what duration do you have to pay this loan? And this is because tuition across institutions are different. So it means that the loan you are applicable for also varies. And as such, maybe a time frame of when you are expected to pay that bill, that loan cannot be identified yet. But I feel that guarantor, the level 12 thing, I know families that there are communities that maybe of 20 people, it is just 5 students, 5 youths that are opportune to attend university. It is because quite a number of us are in the city. That's why we are not thinking in that direction. In a community at times, these rural communities, you hardly find a level 10, a level 8 officer by the nature of how their community is. So how do you expect such students? I feel that on the issue of the guarantor, maybe we bring the level down a little. Maybe we had clerics. Maybe we had, because I know that if you want to get bail for people in court and so on, they can ask you to bring a cleric, a royal father. Or if we had all of these things to the type of guarantor, it will be flexible, because of course every community is expected to have a paramount ruler or somebody that is in charge, that is a leader of the community. When these people are also able to serve as guarantor, because they are a leader of the community, they don't have anywhere to run to. It can be flexible for people, please. That's my own thinking.
All right. Now, quickly, Abayomi, because we're running out of time. Okay. This matter of corruption and not politicizing this whole matter is what has also been brought to the fore, because as we mentioned earlier, in the 80s and 70s when this happened, that was also part of what crumbled the board with regards to these loans. How do we insulate the system now from corruption and from politicizing it?
I think this boils down to the capacity and the interest of the CNC in this scheme. Yes, statutorily we know the board members by virtue of their the offices they hold. So now the occupant of those offices, as the case is who we should now screen. So if somebody is coming up as a CBN governor, I hope it's not somebody that is kleptomaniac. Somebody is coming up as the Minister of Education, I hope it's not somebody that is greedy. I hope they are people of, yes, the right character and of integrity. So let those that will occupy those offices that will form membership of that board be of people that live above board, so that the scheme will even outlive this current administration, and they won't have to start, thinking about scrabbling it or and all that. So I think it's just about the membership of that board. All
right. We'll have to leave the conversation here now because we have run out of time. But we must thank you, gentlemen. The President, Yewa Wuri Youth Council, Public Affairs Analyst, Abayomi Okeashiwaju, for joining us, as well as former National Association of Nigerian Student Coordinator, Southwest, Comrade Kapo Olawale, thank you for your time on the program. Right. We take a break. When we return, we'll bring you the news update.